Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hyperconscious Podcast is proudly sponsored by our friend and mentor, David Meltzer of the Playbook Podcast. He was kind enough to join us on episode 144 and 135.
Folks, it has become Kevin and I's mission in life to help you realize that the life of your dreams is right on the other side of you becoming the greatest version of yourself. Let us help you do that.
I rarely do these things twice in such a short amount of time, but you guys impress me. I believe in people that provide value and of our service. You two guys are on your way to huge fulfillment, purpose, and profitability, and I look forward to helping you both.
We appreciate that more than you know. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode where Alan and I were lucky enough to sit down with the one and only Tori Aletto in person. Today, we are going to do a 5-minute clinic on the word attitude.
So before we jump into attitude here, I wanted to give you a friendly reminder to go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com, click on join #HyperconsciousNation. It's going to bring you to our private Facebook group of like-minded people where you can engage, stay inspired, stay motivated, stay educated every single day.
Also, if you sign up to our Facebook group, you'll also be entered to win 2 free tickets to our event July 25th, Groton, Massachusetts. So that is another thing.
Confident Women's Consortium.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about attitude. We're going to try to hammer this out quickly because we have been going over every single time.
Right.
Most likely we will go over again. So attitude. I think that at times I haven't always had the best attitude regarding certain things. Like a lot of times I want the experience to be good instead of the outcome, right? Like, I think a lot of people do. I think your attitude is really going to alter and affect the result you get out of something. So if you're going into an environment where, let's just say you're going to a network event.
Right.
If you're going to network, your attitude has to be that of somebody who is open, somebody who is willing to learn, somebody who is willing to take chances, somebody who is kind of vulnerable because you're going to be getting out of your comfort zone.
Totally.
Right? So I think that has been a negative thing of mine in the past. Like, we met Joyce, who was on Sunday's episode, last Sunday's.
Number 174.
So we met her at a networking event.
Yep.
That was right after our episode that we recorded with Dave Meltzer in person. I wanted to lay in bed and eat pizza. And I remember asking Alan, like, do we have to go to this event? And he's like, yeah, man, we do. So my attitude...
we really should, yeah.
Yeah. So my attitude was like, I think we did enough for the day, kind of.
Right.
And we didn't. We didn't. We clearly didn't. And we ended up going, and that changed our lives.
Isn't it amazing? Right. It's amazing what's come of that.
It is.
Yeah.
Now, that is a negative, I would say. That's kind of like a negative attitude. One of the positive things about me, I think, is I always try to go into any experience with the attitude of I can learn something here. I've always really done well at different jobs, and like I've always I worked with this guy who was a tile installer, and he was blown away by me. He was like, you're such an awesome person. Like, you always want to learn. You're always on time. My attitude is, like, it is my job to be the most coachable. It is my job to be a great employee. My attitude is that of, somebody who wants to impress. So I think your attitude is going to affect the outcome that you put. It's going to affect...
It's going to affect
everything. Yeah, they say your attitude determines your latitude. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Interesting.
It's from a rap song. Probably.
Most likely. That's
likely.
where Kevin gets most of his philosophy.
Yes.
So John Maxwell says that your attitude is the paintbrush of the mind.
Ooh.
Yeah, which I
like
thought
that.
was interesting.
Yeah.
Not quite as good as the latitude thing.
No. No.
So I prepped for this episode, And one of the things that I think a positive mental attitude is really important is it's going to change your state. So I don't know if I've explained the 3 S's before. We'll probably do a more in-depth episode on this at some point. It's Tony Robbins. He says there's 3 S's that change your life. There's state, story, and strategy. Your state is how you feel in a given moment, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I think emotionally is based on your attitude, really. It's not what happens to you, it's how you perceive it, right? And then that's going to affect your story. So if you're in a peak state because you have a great attitude, you're much more likely to tell yourself empowering stories, like I should go to this networking event instead of I don't want to. And then you're going to lead to strategy. Okay, how do we get there? Once we're there, how are we going to approach people, right? So most people, if you're not in a peak state, you're going to have, if you have a disempowering state because of a disempowering attitude, you're going to have a disempowering story, and then you're maybe never even going to strategize. And if you do strategize, maybe you don't have a very good one. So I think that's really important. Attitude's going to put you in a peak state.
I had a breakthrough.
Oh, I like that.
So I still haven't done, so for those who follow me on Instagram, every other post, so I do a video and then I do like a saying, and then I do a video, then I do a saying. Today's post is going to be a saying because I haven't done it yet, and it is going to be your gratitude determines your attitude.
I love that.
And I just made it up. And I don't know if anybody's ever said it, but if they haven't, I did.
Right. And this is the first and last time that ever gets said.
It's going to be
Kevin
trademarked.
Palmieri.
Trademarked.
Yeah,
Hyperconscious.
Exactly. Yeah. So I have a couple questions for Kevin here.
Quickly.
Main question. What is attitude, and how do we make sure that we and the listeners have and maintain a positive one?
Oh, man. That is a tough one because I think your attitude is really a culmination of many things. It's wow, your mindset, your expectations, but also like
how grateful you are.
So many things.
Right.
So many things. If you're closed-minded, you probably have a negative attitude towards whatever it is you're doing. So if you go into a relationship, say my girlfriend and I get into a fight, and I go into it with a negative attitude, the good chance that the problem doesn't get resolved. Right. I have to go into it with an open, understanding, patient, supportive, vulnerable attitude. Your attitude, I think, is what makes up. Okay. Your attitude, I'm gonna try this, is the mask of all of your emotions at once.
Okay.
Like if you're sad, your attitude might be different than if you were excited.
Right.
Right.
This is how your state is affecting your story.
Yeah.
So I think is the story you tell yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's something that can't be seen. It's something that only you know. Only you know what your attitude is, unless you portray that, like
outwardly.
Yeah.
I think it'll come through. It'll shine.
I'm sure it will, but you're the only one who knows in silence. When you enter the room, you're the only one who really knows what your attitude is.
Yeah.
Just like you're the only one who knows what your intentions are.
I think we all need to check in with it. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm just being ungrateful and I'm not living my highest self, and sometimes I feel like I'm being entitled, and you just really have to check in with your attitude.
Can you get the definition just so we know? Like,
yeah, let's do it.
I'm intrigued at what actually attitude is, because it's one of those things, like I can't say it without saying the word.
The other two questions, and I'll it's how do you check in with it, you personally?
Yeah.
And then how do you change it for the listeners?
So I will say to myself, like those networking events, like, why do I feel the way I feel right now? Like, why am I feeling super closed off? Oh, why? Because you're being self-conscious.
Right.
Because you're letting your limiting beliefs win. You're letting the fact that, like, it's out of your comfort zone. You want to be comfortable. Usually when I have a negative attitude, it's because it's out of my comfort zone and I'm seeking comfort. How do I change it? This will be worth it. Like, you have to, if you're going to get what you put into the pot. If you put warm water in the pot, you're going to have warm water. If I put cold water in the pot, I'm going to have cold water. If I go into an event with a warm attitude, I'm accepting, I want to learn, I'm probably going to have a warm experience. But if I go in super cold, super closed off, I'm probably going to leave there and say, I didn't learn anything.
Totally.
Well, it doesn't mean it's their fault. Maybe it's my fault for having a shitty attitude.
One of my mentors, Dr. Robert, shout out to you, he gave me a very good analogy. He said, it's like this teapot. If we put hot water into the teapot, we were at Sky Buffet, it's a Chinese buffet restaurant, and the teapot it gets warm if you put hot stuff in it. If you put cold water in it, it gets cold. And so that's kind of an analogy for the rooms you're in. If you're in a lot of toxic rooms with negative attitudes, you're going to end up leaving there with a negative attitude. People who complain a lot. I'm guilty of this too. So are you. Like
Everybody.
we all are.
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody's guilty of it. And I think that's why it's so important to check in with it. So I just got the definition up, and I know we got to go because we're on 11 minutes already.
Oh, yeah.
So number 1, first definition: manner, disposition, feeling, or position with regard to a person, place, or thing. Tendency or orientation. I like orientation. It's like, what is your orientation, positive or negative, right?
Yeah.
Number 2, position or posture of the body appropriate to or expressive of an action. I think that physiology change emotion. If you're in a bad state and you have a bad attitude, one way you can shift that is exercise or drinking water or maybe doing some power poses with your posture, things like that.
Interesting.
Number 3, aeronautics, the inclination of the 3 principal axes of an aircraft relative to the wind. That's
Is that altitude?
No, I think it's under attitude.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's under attitude.
All right.
Let me read one more. Hold on.
Quickly.
No, this one's not relevant.
Oh,
A
man.
pose in which the dancer stands on one leg and the other is bent behind.
That's some
That is
attitude
one
for sure.
attitude, right?
So, yeah, I think from this, my goal, if you're watching or listening, and I hope you have this takeaway, is that I think your attitude, similar to your intentions, is really going to affect your takeaway from an event, from communication, from talking to somebody, from an experience, from a lesson, from all of those things. I think if you go in with a positive, I can learn from this attitude. A positive, I am open to constructive criticism. A positive, I am willing to get out of my comfort zone. A positive, I am willing to be vulnerable attitude. I think your results will be far better than they would be if you went in closed off and negative.
Kevin's talking about the way you're going to internalize the outcomes and how the outcome is going to turn out with a positive attitude. I truly believe one of the biggest benefits of attitude and a positive mental attitude is you're more likely to try. The biggest thing is I don't have to. We didn't have to go to that event and meet Joyce and Dave and all that.
Right.
We get to. And as soon as you say I get to go to the gym, it's going to shift everything, and then you feel obligated and responsible to go because there's a lot of people that aren't able to.
Some would say that's gratitude.
Some would say that
My
is
goodness.
gratitude.
So, what did I say it was? Your gratitude determines your attitude.
I think that's a fact.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We are going to do a small talks episode on the word happy. We talked about that in one of our other episodes, but I think for a lot of people, the definition of happy is far different than what they actually want. And I think in order for you to figure out what makes you happy, what feels happy, what actually constitutes as happiness, you have to figure that out for yourself. I think it's different for every single person, and we're going to talk about it.
Can I say my thing quick?
Yeah.
It's 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't believe you should do what makes you happy. I believe you should do what makes you great, because what makes you great is going to make you happy.
Ladies and gentlemen, that will be dropping on Wednesday, and we will talk to you then.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for listening to another episode of the Hyper Conscious Podcast.
Going hyper-conscious will absolutely change your life, because if you understand why something is the way it is, now you have the power to change it. If you going hyper-conscious with us has changed your life in any way, please share this episode with one of your friends, because the more people that go hyper-conscious, the better this world's going to be for everybody.
And if you would kindly leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would help us make more people hyper-conscious, and we would be greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Bye.